My wife of 19 years informed me that she had been set up on a blind date by her friend Tanisha. The setting up of the date was apparently the result of a girls' night out. The date in question was with a man with whom my wife had had a sexual encounter a few weeks earlier. At the time, Tanisha was in a relationship with someone else and had set up my wife with this former sexual partner. My wife went out at 7 p.m. and returned home at 3 a.m. The confession was a complete surprise. She expressed remorse and a desire to improve the marriage. She shed tears and asked for forgiveness. She stated that there was no physical contact between her and the man because Tanisha had slept with him. She acknowledged that agreeing to meet the man was wrong and going to meet him was even worse. However, I have doubts about her assertion that nothing happened. She also mentioned that the man works at a sawmill. Furthermore, the individual in question earns a higher income. It is therefore evident that the aforementioned individual views me as a less optimal choice. Following the aforementioned evening, and prior to the aforementioned confession, the friendship between my wife and Tanisha deteriorated. They went from being the closest of friends to accusing Tanisha of being untruthful and manipulative. My wife believes that the confession was an attempt to prevent me from learning the truth about her affair with the other man. By providing only partial information, Tanisha was able to manipulate my perception of events, making it seem as if I was in the wrong, while protecting her own reputation. In truth, I did not require a detailed account of the incident. The inconsistencies and implausibilities in her story were too significant. This incident occurred around that time. When she informed me of it, I experienced a profound shift in my emotional state. I felt a sense of detachment, as if I had lost all feeling for her. I did not experience any anger. I have reached a point of acceptance and am currently focused on planning my exit from the marriage. I am taking steps to organize our finances, secure housing, and address other practical matters. It is unfortunate that she would be willing to end 19 years of marriage without consideration for the impact on our 2 children. Update. She has recently been diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, whereby her white blood cells are attacking her lungs, resulting in asthma attacks that cannot be corrected by conventional medication. The only drug currently available to control the condition has a price tag of $133. Without the assistance of her Medicaid coverage, the financial burden of the prescribed treatment would be insurmountable for her. She is attempting to reconcile the situation through various avenues, including couples counseling. After 2.5 sessions, it became evident why she was reluctant to divulge the complete truth and sought to rectify the situation. The counseling sessions followed a predictable trajectory, with each session focusing on my actions. I was incorrect in assuming that my working 50 hours each week to make ends meet was a cause for concern, given that my wife has partial disability and does not work. I am not suggesting that I am without fault. I acknowledged that everything was up for discussion, including our 2 children. However, I was informed that the mention of her date night was off-limits about halfway through the 3rd session. The counselor looked her in the eye and asked if she had a high. The counselor's approach was to identify perceived shortcomings in the client's behavior and then apply that same lens to the client's own actions. This process involved a degree of confrontation and emotional intensity. My soon-to-be ex-wife initially expressed frustration with the counselor's tone and approach, questioning why she was being attacked when we were there to address my issues. After a brief exchange, she abruptly ended the session. My wife abruptly departed the session, visibly distressed. The counselor informed me that my soon-to-be ex-wife has a profound animosity towards me, and I am uncertain whether this marriage can be salvaged. I responded in the affirmative and negative. I expressed my gratitude for the counselor's time and stated that I would likely seek individual counseling in the future. I proceeded to discuss a taboo topic. The counselor's suspicions were confirmed, and I was met with no surprise. On our return to the house, the entire trip was centered on expressing dissatisfaction with the therapist. I have been functioning on autopilot since then. When I am at my house, I refer to it as my house because it is no longer my home. I have moved into the spare bedroom. In my view, although I am married, I no longer have a wife. If she did not require good medical insurance coverage, she would still be looking for it. I do not need to track down Tanisha to get the whole story. I live in a small community of less than 900 people. I commute to work in a bigger city every day. On Monday of this week, while at the only grocery store in the community, I encountered my soon-to-be ex-wife. My wife was approached by the gentleman with whom she had gone on a blind date. As I was situated at the end of the aisle, I observed the interaction. The man is of slight stature, approximately 5 feet 9 inches and 150 pounds. My wife was facing away from me, unaware of my presence. The man extended an invitation to her for another date, which she declined. At that moment, I approached the couple and inquired if the man in question was the one she had gone out with approximately 2 months prior. I then backed the man up against the shelves and informed him that I had been her husband for 19 years. I anticipated that he would be visibly shaken by this revelation. I am 62 years of age and 250 pounds, with a muscular build. The woman attempted to persuade me to I instructed her to cease her verbal assault. She complied, but only after she had begun to weep. I then asked the man if he wished to speak with me. He swallowed hard and replied in the affirmative. I informed him that I would never allow him to see her again. He apologized profusely and then abruptly departed the store. In the wrong place at the exact moment he appeared, if it hadn't been him, I would have eventually encountered Tanisha to obtain the information I sought. It is worth noting that, for the most part, I am on autopilot, as though all emotion has been drained from my being. I must feign happiness while in the company of my children. I am uncertain as to whether this is an emotional self-defense mechanism. This is a defense mechanism to prevent further deterioration of the situation. I am aware that I should be experiencing distress over this, but I am unsure when that will occur. I no longer trust the information I have been given. Do my children truly love me, or do they love the things I give them? Do my parents love me for my academic achievements? In school, I was never involved in any disciplinary incidents. The only certainty I have is that I am unable to remain in this unsatisfactory marriage. My daily routine involves getting up, going to work, and barely eating or sleeping. I have only confided in strangers on the internet, as I do not have anyone in my immediate circle with whom I can discuss this matter. I go from one day to the next, attempting to appear as though I am functioning normally. Perhaps my soon-to-be ex-wife is the only person who truly knows the truth about me. The therapist's assessment was correct. I require treatment. I would like to take a moment to remind you to click the subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. It is invaluable to me. I will now proceed to describe our second incident. My wife is engaging in an extramarital relationship with my colleague. I am a 33-year-old male, and my wife is a 30-year-old female. We have been together for 11 years. I previously believed that our relationship was stable. However, recent events have led me to question this assumption. For context, I work as a dispatcher. I am a trucker, and it is a satisfactory position. I receive favorable benefits, and my income is sufficient to maintain a comfortable standard of living. My wife previously worked in the field of computer gaming, but due to corporate restructuring, she lost her job. Consequently, I have become the sole source of income for our family. I have been taking on additional work hours, and on one occasion, my vehicle's battery died. Consequently, I requested that my wife drive me to work. Upon reaching the parking lot, I greeted my colleague Andrew, who then approached me to exchange pleasantries. My wife then introduced us, and Andrew complimented her on her beauty. I was flattered but also amused, replying that I was fortunate to have such a lovely wife. We proceeded to enter the workplace together. A few days later, I saw my wife in the parking lot with Andrew, who was eating lunch with her. I approached them and noticed that they were engaged in conversation. Subsequently, I had the vehicle in optimal operational condition, enabling me to resume my customary commute during the lunch period. I observed my wife's vehicle in the parking area and proceeded to approach it, where I observed her engaged in conversation with Andrew. I experienced a sense of disquiet, yet I maintained composure and announced my presence by rapping on her window. She responded by opening the door and informing me that she and Andrew had arranged to have lunch together that day. Andrew then said, "I hope you are not angry." I took a deep breath and replied, "No." I turned around and walked to the car because I was aware that if I said anything further, it would likely result in an argument. However, I could sense my wife becoming increasingly frustrated as I walked away. Later that day, when I returned home, she became visibly upset, stating that I had embarrassed her in front of Andrew. I inquired as to why she felt this way. She then inquired as to whether I was concerned and, when I replied in the negative, demanded to know when I had begun spending time with him. She then abruptly departed, stating that she was a mature adult and had no obligation to provide me with such information. Since that time, she has become increasingly distant, spending a considerable amount of time on her phone, calling and texting her friends. I am aware that this is a sign, but I am reluctant to accuse her. If I am wrong, I will be viewed as the aggressor, and if I do make an accusation, I will be viewed as the aggressor. At the same time, I am reluctant to remain silent. I am unsure of the appropriate course of action. I have consulted with a friend who has provided me with an Apple AirTag. I intend to place it in my wife's vehicle and follow her to ascertain whether I can gather evidence to support my case in the event of a potential legal separation. However, I am concerned that if we do ultimately proceed with divorce, I may be unable to cope with the emotional distress that this would entail. I have experienced significant distress and endured a great deal. I am astonished that she would discard the item so readily. Nevertheless, I am compelled to proceed with my investigation. Upon developing my suspicions, I requested the assistance of a friend, who provided me with an AirTag. I concealed it in my wife's vehicle and followed her. She informed me that she was visiting a friend, which I initially doubted. Therefore, I followed her in my friend's vehicle to ensure that she could not discern my presence. After a 20-minute pursuit, she arrived at a hotel. After driving for approximately 1 minute, she arrived at a hotel. I must admit that I experienced a sense of unease and a rapid heartbeat. I was sincerely hoping that I had misinterpreted the situation and that she was merely visiting a friend. However, I observed Andrew waving at my girlfriend and then saw her running and embracing this individual, kissing him. I was overcome with a profound sense of hurt and anger. I was consumed with the urge to confront Andrew and demand that my wife immediately leave the house. However, I restrained myself and instead took out my phone to document the incident. As I observed them enter the hotel, I was overcome with a profound sense of despair. I returned home and engaged in a cathartic outburst, expressing my anguish through a series of intense emotional reactions. I contacted a friend to discuss the situation further. I then requested my friend's assistance, presenting him with the photographic evidence and once again becoming emotionally distressed. I vocalized my belief that our relationship was irreparably damaged. My friend offered me emotional support and advised me to seek legal counsel and to continue gathering evidence against my partner. I was uncertain about my ability to maintain composure, but I informed my friend that I would endeavor to do so. Over the course of several weeks, I have been gathering evidence and maintaining a certain distance from her. I have observed her going to restaurants, movies, and hotels, and each time, I experienced a certain degree of pain. However, I was able to persevere. She consistently informed me that she was going out with her friends or family, yet I refrained from contacting her to inquire about her whereabouts. I believed that I could maintain this stance for at least a few more days. In particular, the lawyer I am consulting with has informed me that I have more than mere evidence to ensure that I emerge victorious in the forthcoming divorce proceedings and retain possession of all marital assets. However, I believe I may have erred yesterday. It was my birthday, yet I did not feel particularly inclined to celebrate. My wife did not even extend my birthday greetings, but her parents did so when I arrived at work. On my birthday, my colleagues presented me with a cake and gifts. I attempted to conceal my emotions because, for a brief moment, I was able to temporarily forget about the situation at hand. However, when Andrew approached me, I was compelled to maintain a facade. I feigned a smile and expressed gratitude when he presented me with a gift. To my surprise, the gift was a comic book entitled Batman: The Death of the Family. I was initially taken aback because my colleagues were unaware of my interest in comics. DC Comics, in particular, held a special significance for me. When I informed Andrew about my interest in comics, he revealed that my wife had informed him of this fact. In the midst of this conversation, I was abruptly interrupted by my colleague. My colleagues are impeding my progress, and Andrew is in the corner covering his nose and yelling, "What the?" Then I screamed, "I know you've been my wife." Everyone fell silent and looked at Andrew. He attempted to clarify the situation, but I was too enraged to care. I wanted to assault him until he ceased moving, but subsequently, my superior arrived and instructed Andrew to leave the premises. He then requested that I accompany him to his office, where I proceeded to divulge the entire incident and exhibited some of the photographic evidence. My superior expressed remorse and granted me a period of leave to recuperate and regroup. Upon my return home, I was met with a highly agitated response from my spouse. She asserted that I was incorrect in my actions towards Andrew and that she had persuaded him to refrain from pressing charges for assaulting him. She continued to vocalize her displeasure, stating that Andrew makes her feel like a strong woman, treats her with respect, and knows how to make her feel special. I eventually became enraged and simply stated, "I don't care." She appeared surprised and became silent. I continued, suggesting that if he makes her feel special, she should consider living with him and relying on him for support. I then informed her that I was no longer willing to tolerate her behavior. She responded by expressing remorse and attempting to justify her actions by claiming that Andrew had caught her at a moment of weakness. I calmly advised her to seek legal counsel. Given the imminent dissolution of our marriage. She attempted to express remorse and asserted that financial constraints precluded her from obtaining legal representation. However, I informed her that I would not negotiate until she vacated the premises. Despite her tears and entreaties, I proceeded to gather her belongings and contacted her sister to facilitate her departure. I then proceeded to remove her from the premises, whereupon she proceeded to lock herself in the bathroom, stating that she would not emerge until I was willing to work things out with her. I informed her that I was not interested in working anything out and that we needed space. Given that when I saw her I felt angry and hurt. She eventually emerged and apologized, after which she proceeded to pack her belongings. Subsequently, I was left alone in the house, where I was overcome with emotion and unable to stop crying. I experienced a multitude of intense feelings, and I was unsure of how to process them. I apologize if my previous post was disorganized. I was experiencing a high level of distress and emotional turbulence. However, I am scheduled to begin therapy sessions shortly and will provide updates on my progress. Once the immediate crisis has been resolved, I would like to express my gratitude once more to all those who offered advice and support. This will be the final update from the user on this matter. There will be no further updates at this time. Should the user wish to provide an update in the future, I will post it as a second part to this entry. I would therefore encourage you to subscribe to this channel.